I'm Patrick Howell O'Neill with CyberScoop. I'm here with Tony Hubbard, principal at KPMG, and we are at Cyber Talks in DC Cyber Week, and we're 10 months into 2017. We're a couple of weeks into Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and the amount of hallmark breaches and cybersecurity incidents is through the roof this year and fittingly this month. And with your experience in private industry and with the public sector, what I wanted to ask you is, how should organizations be changing the way that they're looking at this problem?
Well, I think what gets lost in a lot of the recent media events and breaches and such is that this is still very much a fundamentals issue, a cyber hygiene issue. If you look at the major attacks and breaches that have occurred, these are not sophisticated attacks. These are missing passwords and device misconfigurations and a ransomware attack, for instance, not having backups of your data to recover from. So I think what gets lost in a lot of this, there's a perception that this is a very technical issue and you need very technical solutions, and that's just not the case. What you need is very robust fundamentals in your cyber process, meaning training and awareness. They're not the most exciting elements of it, but training and awareness to make sure that you're training folks to not click on an email that they see and they don't recognize. Making sure that there's appropriate audits done of your processes so that if you do have a gap that you're identifying it yourself versus an adversary identifying it. So I think that's a big part of it, is just realizing the fundamentals and that cyber hygiene is just critical.
Well, your answer kind of leads perfectly into talking about the cybersecurity workforce, right? If you're talking about a lot of this isn't as high level as it's made out to be, a lot of this is very foundational to the issue. How do you solve that problem of there's not enough talent to even address the foundations of the solution?
Yeah, that's a great question, and obviously a tremendously difficult one to answer. I think there's no question, you look at all the reports and there's so many unfilled positions from a cyber professional perspective. You just can't fill these positions quickly enough or with the right skill sets. I think this is more of a longer term answer, but it has to start with getting out into, frankly, the grade schools and the high schools and getting involved with the STEM programs. You see more and more universities building these strong cyber programs, but it really has to start from that ground level. And I know that sounds a little odd, but I mean, you look at youngsters today, I mean, they're interacting at school with technology, and so getting them to understand the significance of cybersecurity to the extent that they can grasp that, but as they get older and they understand that you don't click on this link unless you know what it is, you don't click on this email unless you know who it's coming from. I think it has to start there. And now, that doesn't necessarily address the current challenge, but I think you just have to try to figure out a way to get more energy and enthusiasm for the cybersecurity industry. My son's college age now, and I keep trying to push him down to this path because I know if he heads down the cybersecurity path, he's going to have a job when he gets out.
Right.
And he won't necessarily have to live in my basement. He'll be able to have that job when he gets out. And so I think more of those conversations, even at the university level, and preparing students to come out into the workforce. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a technology field. I mean, there's a lot of fields that people can be successful in cybersecurity, just as long as you have the aptitude to learn, the willingness to learn, and a curiosity about a particular area or activity. You can be successful in cybersecurity. It doesn't have to be a technology field.
So there have been several law enforcement officials here at Cyber Talks who have spoken about exactly this issue and have talked about it the way you have, where there's this short-term and long-term, right? And there was an FBI official who talked about the Bureau's efforts to really go into a pipeline in education, build a pipeline where students can get school paid for, get debts paid off. And what it reminded me immediately of is the way that other countries are doing it. You said it sounded odd to reach into the education system, and I think for a lot of Americans it does, but when you look at a country like Israel, which is, whatever else you got to say about the way that they do cyber, they're extremely respected and technically proficient because, in large part, they have an incredible pipeline system that reaches right into education. Russia, certainly their education system yields benefits. Do you think that we have something to learn from other countries around the world in the way that they're dealing with education in this field?
Absolutely. I think exactly what you just said. Just making sure that there's more recognition that at the very young level, getting folks or children to understand the importance and the significance of a security breach. Or what they can probably translate more to is not necessarily a breach per se, but somebody has taken over mom or dad's, they're taking control of their identity, because I mean that hits more close to home in terms of mom or dad's wallet was stolen or their identity was stolen, and all of a sudden there's all kinds of issues there. I think they can probably grasp that concept more so than they can a malware kind of event or a ransomware event. So, but that's okay. I mean, starting with that kind of premise and getting them to understand the significance, it has to start with that kind of level and just continue up through as the children go up through their college age and into their professional life.
So you're dealing with large organizations of different kinds. How can the kind of organizations you're dealing with be more proactive in their approach here?
I think from a proactivity perspective, a lot of it boils, you hear a lot of conversation, you hear the conversations today about automation and looking for ways to automate more of the capabilities that you have. And again, you're not going to ever get away from the basic fundamentals that you need to have in place from a cyber perspective, but you can certainly complement those with more automation, tools and technologies which are critical. But even with that said, I've heard some discussions almost going to the War Games movie kind of thing, is let's do away with the people, let's get the humans out of the mix, and that will make us more secure. And I just fundamentally don't agree with that philosophy, because at some point, no matter how much you automate these processes, you're going to need somebody who has the sophistication and the knowledge and the experience to look at an event and understand that it's an anomaly. Something's not happening right here. And I think, so we can certainly look to automate and get more proactive around that, but it's still going to have that human factor, the folks that can really evaluate what's happening and make a decision off of it.
Okay, so to contrast with the relative doom and gloom, can you tell me about some of the positive steps you're seeing organizations take?
Well, I think it goes to the theme again of automation. There's so much opportunity and upside to automate more of the manual cyber-oriented tasks, such as providing users with access and managing that access, reviewing the reams of audit trail data that are generated by systems. A lot of that can be automated to then allow your professionals to do more meaningful tasks. I take a good example in the federal market. There's a concept called a risk management framework, RMF, which is a process that federal agencies use to work their systems through the approval process and ultimately get them into production. That process is very manual oriented, a lot of emails, a lot of documents in different places, and that process really lends itself well to being automated. So it's those types of opportunities that get me excited working in the cybersecurity realm, because there's just so much upside in ways that we can get our professionals out of these more mundane tasks and into more meaningful efforts and tasks.
Perfect. Thank you for the conversation.
Thanks
for coming to Cyber Talks.
Absolutely.
And thank you for watching.
Yep.